Well, when I was very young, I must say I had very, very good teachers in school. In fact, I never had such teachers after I went to college. The best teachers I had were in school. As the quality of teaching went decreasing as I went further up when I went to college. These teachers, one of them, I would say, I want to see how you make some compound or whatever it is. He would say, come on Saturday morning, I'll make it and show you. This kind of thing. And it is really unbelievable that we had teachers of this kind. They are all ordinary teachers paid with hardly 40 rupees or 50 rupees salary in Bangalore. They were some of the greatest teachers I have seen at least. They didn't know a lot, but what they knew, they could tell us. That is one thing. And second, is the real thing was, when I was in high school here, in second year high school, fifth form, CV Raman came to our school. And I was one of the sort of persons, like a volunteer. And he gave a lecture, as usual, Raman, they were exciting and so on. And then after that, he told our teacher, bring one or two students of you are good to the Indian Institute of Science, I will talk to them. And the teacher picked me as one of them. And I will never forget, in 1945, C.V. Raman in the Indian Institute of Science, going around with us for 1 hour, talking to us. He spent 1 hour actually. I think somehow, my God, what a wonderful life to be like him, I thought, so science as a scientist thought of science I didn't know, but science as a subject seemed to be kind of interesting at that time. But it was only as an undergraduate I decided to become a scientist. In fact, you may not believe it, I got a very high rank in BSc. Those days, very few people got first class. In our university, there were only 3 people who got first class in bachelor's degree. It so happened I was one of them. And everybody said, well, you must go to IAS, you must do that, do this. But somehow I told my parents, no, I just want to go for science and not become IAS. And by that time I had made up my mind. All because I had seen some people, teachers, who had their names on papers. I asked them, what is this? Your name is on this paper. He said, no. When you do original work, you can publish papers with your name. Oh, is that so? I think I want to do that, I told myself. And I remember that was in 1949. I still remember that vividly. Then I decided to go for science. I was trained, as you know, in the early days, because of my excitement with structure, atoms, molecules. That was in the early days of the golden age of science. Just then, molecular structure had been understood, crystallography had come up, and Linus Pauling had just first solved the first structure of the protein. So I thought I must do work of that kind. So I went to the United States mainly for that reason, because in India there was nobody doing that type of research, the two in chemistry, in any subject for that matter. There is not enough of diffraction, crystallography, spectroscopy of the kind I thought I should do. Because I would read journals and wouldn't understand a word because I didn't know what it meant. So I went there, I went to the United States, I did work in electron diffraction of gases and molecular structure, I did lots of spectroscopy. In fact, I was on the early papers in NMR spectroscopy I did. But when I came back, I found there the facilities in Indian Institute of Science, where I joined as a young faculty member, were so pathetic. They except wax, thread, and some broken beakers, they had nothing else. So I had to think of how to do spectroscopy without spectrometers. And somehow I could borrow here, this and that, still publish some things. Then I said, I must pick an area where I could do reasonable work from here and still get noticed. And then I thought maybe it is the chemistry of solids. Solid state physics was known because I had my PhD was partly in physics, chemical physics and physics. So I knew enough of solid state physics. I thought it was a chemistry of solids, and there are very few people who were working on it. In the entire world, maybe 6, 7 people. So that I always quote Robert Frost's poem, The Lonely Road. When I walked in the yellow wood, the road, there are 2 ways I could go. I took the path that less traveled by it. I knew there was something called an Indian Academy, but because there was something called a South India Science Association, C.V. Raman used to, I didn't know much about it. Because I had a friend of mine whose father was a member of that. He used to say something about Raman, and I didn't know details, except that Raman was a great man. But when I went there, I found that I wanted to publish 1 or 2 papers in India from the United States. Then I thought, where do I publish? Then I found somebody told me, one of Raman's students named Ramdas, who is a professor in Purdue University. Raman edits a magazine called Current Science. Why don't you publish it there? So I sent 2 papers, Electron Diffraction of Carbon Tetrachloride, Rao and Livingston, a paper from Purdue. That was in 1957 or so. And another paper on some infrared spectra on polar effects with one Gladys Silverman. I think that was around she was a graduate student in America in the same university. That was around 56, 57. I tell you what, to be honest, I wanted to not to be known as somebody who had no knowledge of India, who had no connection with India. I thought the only connection I could have was through some publication, because I didn't have anybody else to, there was no big person who I could write to in science and who could help me in any way. I thought maybe through publication I would have a connection with India. Somehow I thought, I don't know why, don't ask me, some Indian thing. That Indian thing is the one that brought me back also, don't forget. When I left Berkeley and came, I had a very good offer of assistant professorship by 3 universities. One of them saying within 2 years you will be made an associate professor, because I had already got about 25 papers at the time. And they said, with your publication record, we should make you within 2 years. Then I had to decide, either be there or come back. Then, then I have come back. So, for various reasons, to Indian Institute of Science I came. Institute was a very small place then. If you go to any department, there were maximum 5 faculty members. 1 professor, 1 assistant professor, 3 lecturers. A department meant that. I mean, there's no, people would ask you, you would ask him, what is my future? You ask them, oh, nothing, you are a lecturer, you will retire as a lecturer. There's nothing called a future in the institute. Very, very difficult place. And of course, R.S. Krishnan was the head of physics. So we used to go and talk about various things about departments. He was a very close friend. At that time, we probably were 2 of the very close friends for many years. Shivraj used to be a staff member like me in physics. Every day we used to meet. Every day. At lunchtime, I used to go to his house and eat in my dabba and Kausalya, and he would eat lunch. And then evenings, how do you spend evenings? There is no social life in them. Even today, it is not. Even today, it is bad. I am told, nobody meets anybody else in evening hours and so on, socially. Satish, and he had an old Maris Minor car. I also had an old Maris Minor. And we used to go to Kabban Park, have a masala dosa. It was very common, Satish and his family and myself. Those days, his daughter Dumbi, they were all little children. And we had our first daughter at that time. We were a much younger family. Satish and Ramseshan were almost 10 years, 8 years older than me. But became very good friends. These are 2 different things. That friendship continued till the last, particularly with Satish. I miss him even today. I think he was a moral conscience of Indian science. He was not an academic conscience. He was not a great scientist. He never fancied himself to be one. But with his high morality, outstanding human being. And he was a charming man. There are very few people like that. He said, I miss them all. All of them are gone now. Very few left behind. Well, those are, I miss Satish. what happened was when I was young, about 25, I came back as a staff member in the Indian Institute of Science. I wrote my first book. It came out exactly when I was about 26 years old. To be exact, something like just about less than 26. It came from London. It was an ultraviolet spectroscopy. C.V. Raman had seen that. I didn't give him a copy. Then I wrote a second book, which came 3 years later in that was 62, 63, Chemical Applications of Infrared Spectroscopy. It was a 700-page book published by Academic Press, New York. Somehow he saw it. I didn't give him a copy. I have got this book, I have seen this, and then he wrote a letter. I had never met him. It is, he had known that someone like me existed because I have used the spectrometer in his lab once or twice when I was in the Institute of Science. By 63, I had already moved to IIT Kanpur. I got this very wonderful letter, which is I put framed and put it in that Hall of Science, that I would like someone like you to be a member of the Academy. He wrote, and if you don't mind paying 36 rupees per year as the fees, I'll see that you become a member. Typical Raman. Of course, and first he put C.R. RAO, then he put like the C.N.R. RAO. I still have that letter. So that's how I got to know him. And it was 2-3 years later, for his 80th birthday, he asked, I was one of the speakers. I remember everybody in Indian science was there. You can't imagine whether it was in those days Menon and of course Sarabhai and of course Raman, all the people or everyone in TIFR, everyone in Bangalore, everybody was there. And it was a wonderful occasion. Sarabhai had arranged it in Ahmedabad. I gave this lecture on something about semiconducting organic compounds, something about and their spectra and so on. And then he was so nice to me after that. Oh, wonderful! You're a ball of fire and all that. He went on. He could be very nice. He could also be equally terrible. I mean, your luck. Anyway, he never forgot me. And then the year after that, 69, he turned 80. In the year 1971, I got this wonderful letter, dear Professor Rao. I'm arranging the meeting of the Academy. He didn't say the last Academy of the Academy in Bangalore. Please come and give a lecture. I want very much you to come. And he was not well by that time. And I thought I must go and see that. I go there. And there was hardly 20, 30 people. He was, as usual, Raman sitting in the front. And I gave a lecture on structure of water, liquid water. And again, he was wonderful. I wished someone like you were my teacher. He could be terrific. And then went on talking about Indian science. Of course, a few weeks later, he died. I will never forget that. He was you had to take him as a package. You take individual, great men like him. You could not take him as this was good, this was bad, he was like this, he was like that. No. Total package. Raman was a package. And overall, the package was a fantastic package. And imagine all the great things he did in science in his life, he didn't have a job as a scientist. In Nagpur, when he was working in the as an accountant general, assistant accountant general, or senior accounts officer, something. Evening, he would work in Nagpur Science College on the acoustics and all these percussion instruments, and became fellow of the Royal Society doing that. I mean, it's extraordinary. Even today, to become an FRS, you would at least need a job. Even he didn't even have a job as a scientist. Same with most of his work, based on which he got the Nobel Prize, was done outside our working hours. This, I think, is a very unbelievable story, actually, in science. I am a great admirer of Raman with all whatever it is. To me, he was very wonderful. What happened was very interesting in the Academy. When Raman was there, he ran the Academy. There was nothing else. There was no second person. In fact, when I was elected to the Academy, Raman decided, I remember G.N. Ramchandran writing it, C.N.R. Rao, Professor wants to nominate you, so you will be elected. And that is it. Personal. It was like that. And there was no secretary, there was nothing. The Academy was there, Raman ran it. And when he died, it became a real vacuum, they had to create it. So I suggested we should have a secretary for the Academy, who was a scientific secretary. So I was the first secretary of the Academy. That's how I got involved in every aspect of rejuvenation of Academy, creating journals, doing new things in the Academy. And Academy was unknown, getting big grants. Fortunately, we could get more grants from the government. Change journals up to a point, creation of Pramana in physics, the Bulletin of Material Science. Number of things. So I was one of the, and then when Satish Daman became president, I was secretary until I don't know, I was secretary for some years, 6, 7, 8 years. Then I became vice president, then I became editor of publication and various things, and then I became president myself. Then I worked very closely with Satish. In fact, I still remember arranging meetings. You know, the arranging national meetings, the way they are being arranged now, was a new thing. Well, Raman used to do it, but it was a personal thing. It was a small affair, making a lot of people, local people involved and having big lectures. It all started post-Raman. I was involved in it in a big way. We started a young associate scheme, that young people should be associated with the academy. That was started at that time. Redoing the journals in different ways. It has helped, it has not helped. We tried our best, I tried my best to see that everyone, uses the journals for publishing. All the fellows at least publish one paper a year in an academic journal. It didn't happen, it does not happen. And of course, Satish was such a wonderful friend. And of course, when I decided to leave IIT Kanpur and come back, again, it was one of those meetings in the Indian Academy. Now, I decided to leave India by that time. That was the only time in my life I decided to leave India, because I wanted to leave Kanpur IIT at that time. And where there was nowhere to go. It was Satish in the academy meeting somewhere said, Ram, why is it you want to go? What can I do for you to come back to Bangalore? Very few people talk like that nowadays. Satish asked also that in an academy meeting. I will never forget that. Academy played a very important role in our lives at that time. I wish it did even today in the lives of younger people. See, academy, the meaning of academy is, I hope you know that. One is called a fellowship. Is there fellowship? If there is no fellowship, what do you mean by academy? Fellowship has a particular English meaning. Fellowship of the Ring, we say in the Hobbit or wherever. Lord of the Rings. That fellowship part of academies has gone out of India. You don't feel, you don't meet people as equals, as friends, as people belong to the same. You're all conspirators together. It's not that. You're just working for a common cause. That type of thing has not happened. Second, as an academy, whatever I do in science or she does in science must be affected or influenced in some way, in a positive way, by the academy. Suppose this academy didn't exist, I would have done all the science. On the other hand, I can't say the same of the Royal Society. By doing certain things to me, encouraged me in such a way, I have done better science. There's no doubt about that. National Academy has a role in what America does in science. You see, for example, it says invest $5 billion in astronomy, $10 billion in advanced materials. Who is there to talk like that here? Academies have not played that role. So that is a different national thing. As far as academic work of individuals is concerned, well, by producing a good journal or producing a number of things we could have done, of course we used to have symposia and all that at one time. Even now, I guess they do have them. But somehow they have not excited the imagination of scientists in such a way that scientists feel that they owe a lot to the academy for their academic betterment or academic improvement. I can't say that. You need the right icons for it. You need enough good people. That is what probably is a serious limitation. That when you go to the Royal Society, you are sitting there, you're with Paul Nurse. I'll never forget, I go there, the man who just died, John Nash. Somewhere you go there, you see John Nash having lunch, and you don't, nothing to Nash, but except that you meet all kinds of people, not even in your field. That should happen in an academy. All kinds of people in all kinds of fields who are really exciting. Therefore, we must have the right fellowship, second right membership of the academy, and then academy should do something that would excite these people in the subjects in some way. Scientists from developing world were not equal members of the scientific community. Even today we are not. Even today, your address determines how easily your paper gets accepted in physical review letters or in nature. I mean, that prejudice and inbuilt prejudice is still continuing. That is only one aspect. The other aspect is to feel equal. You are rubbing shoulders with equals, friends. That opportunity doesn't exist for most people, say from Africa. India, we are in a better position than others now. We were not, say, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, everything was by correspondence. There's no email, and my God, even we were behind the rest of the world because the email, the post would take so long to come here. So I think that the Third World Academy at that time was created for the right purpose of giving an opportunity to be equal. Second, giving an opportunity to feel proud. I'm a fellow of this academy, somebody can say. A man from Africa had no academy, in fact. Even today, most countries don't have academies, many countries. So that was created, and I'm glad I have been a founding member. More than that, I was as a president, and before that as vice president. I've tried to do a lot for that academy, created many things there, and I hope they will remember the good things in this respect, and I hope they will continue to do something. Many people come and hug me from all kinds of places in Africa. I feel very good about it, and I feel touched actually. Some of them are decent. In fact, I have a lot of friends from Pakistan, a lot of friends from all other places where Nepal, for example. It's very, very, otherwise you wouldn't have had that chance. You would be sticking, you think you are great doing something in India, then it's not so great actually. We thought in India, I used to work with Rajiv Gandhi at the time, Indira Gandhi. Oh, I remember Menon, all of us used to say, well, we're now not bad. IITs are coming up, things are looking better. Suddenly, then this big Soviet bloc was there, America. In that atmosphere, things seemed to be reasonable. Suddenly, this globalization, when it occurred, everything got, somehow, everybody looked the same after that. Suddenly, we found, my God, we are nothing. China suddenly started investing like mad. Korea, which got independence at the same time as India in 1947, suddenly has become a very big power now. So India is becoming poorer and poorer, not because we didn't do much, but others did more. Others did so much more in terms of investment, in terms of effort, human effort, instead of institution. Chinese investment is several 100% more than our investment. Korean investment is 6% and 4% of the GDP in science, 4.5%, 8% on education. We are still 2% of the GDP on education, less than 1% on science. Everything changed because of that. And so we look at not even one university even now in the top 100, we complain about that. How can we have? So how can you have another Harvard University just by changing the name? You have to have investment of the right kind in people, first, number one. Second, in terms of infrastructure and so on. Nobody seems to realize that. The priorities are not there in India. And so we are no longer doing very well. And as you know, the latest Nature and others have negative things about India. The real worry is the amount of science being done in India has not changed. It's about 2.5% of the world science. Except the world science has increased about triple because of Chinese contribution and all. But still 2.5% means we have increased, but it's still 2.5%. The number of papers may have increased, but doesn't mean anything because the total world percentage is same. But what more worrisome is the top high quality publications from India, we are still contributing less than 1% to the world. China was also same as India about 15 years ago. My friend David King, if you remember, wrote a letter in Nature, you remember. Both India and China are the same in that. Today, China is now 16%, almost 15% of the world science, almost equal to America, and almost 5-6% of the world science in top science, compared to our less than 1%. So this is a thing, when you compare yourself to others, it is always, it is like being rich. You are rich compared to the other guy. Because Mambani says, oh, I'm very poor compared to somebody else, he will say. I mean, he's very rich compared to me. So it's a relative thing about being good in science. I think India is just comparatively doing very badly. I'm a bit worried because I'm getting old and I don't see before too long India is changing, going to change, unless in the next 10 years it changes, it will never change. 50% roughly, people say 60% to be exact, about 50-55% of Indians are below 25 and all that. We will be adding another 4 crore children for higher education in the next 10 to 15 years. As it is, look at the admission. The PUC result we can't publish. First of all, you should not give a wretched PUC exam to million students, 99.5. Get rid of all these marks. We have not got rid of the exam system. Give them letter grades and be done with it. Everyone, this is following are good people. That's all you should say. Oh, he's the best, 99.9%. What stupid. None of them will do well in life. I have found as a rule, those who get 100 out of 100 are failures. In science at least. So I think it's a waste of time. When are we going to change that? When are we going to change our education system? That is one. Science, we have already talked about our present situation. When will it improve? So that in another 10, 15 years, see, considering the demography, and also, others are not going to keep quiet. China is already, China always used to say, we will be number 1 in army. They have become number 1. They are the biggest army in the world. The economy, they said they will become number 1. They have not 1, they have become 2. And they are best in sport, they have become best in sports. Now they are saying they are going to be best in science. They are going to beat America next year in quantity of science. Not quality. Quantity they are going to be. They are now 14.5 or 15%. America is 16%. 1%. They just cross over. America will become second. So when they are doing that, where are we? See, we have to decide where we belong in this kind of a competitive world. Look at South Korea. See, I was in South Korea. There was a wonderful meeting arranged by the Swedish Academy, in fact, the Nobel Committee on Chemistry, a wonderful symposium. I was so pleased. The South Koreans are different from Japanese and Chinese. The meeting was arranged by 300 scientists, 300 best undergraduates, the same common symposium. It's very unusual. He said, no, our bright children should attend top-class meeting with the bright scientists of our country. I was one of the speakers. Anyway, I was impressed the way everything was different. Their worry is that they want to be one of the top countries in Asia, better than Japan, of course. So they do all kinds of things to do that. So when you see this kind of competition, Europe is coming up and still not over. Europe is not over. America is still continuing to be as good as ever in quality of science. So where will we belong in 10, 15 years? The reason in 15 years our population will increase. Look at the way, Bangalore, if we didn't manage a clean Bangalore 10 years ago, we can't manage it today. Exactly what we are facing. So the same thing is true of Indian science, and everything we do, we don't do the right thing in a reasonable time, others will take over. Second, then it will be more difficult to compete. Imagine a China, already a big power, competing with them 10 years from now. When you are at this level, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So competition is, without competition you can do something, but with competition, very difficult. That is why, we want young institutions from children, young children. I call them children. What I mean by is young boys and girls. They are all 18, 20-year-old children. That is when they should see the good science physics. And then, they will grow up. That is the opportunity we give in good institution from the beginning. See, just suddenly at the age of 50, you decide, I'm going to be a very good scientist. You can't start. The same thing for a country. You should start from the beginning, creation institutions, large number of institutions where there is opportunity. Let young people work. I don't know whether you know that. Eventually I'm worried about people, young people. I don't know whether you know James Conant, one of the greatest presidents Harvard University had. He was asked, in a very famous interview, he was asked, Mr. Conant, how did you make Harvard such a great university? Oh, he said, I did nothing. I just brought these bright young people, left them alone. It's a very famous statement. When are we going to do that? We have not yet done that. There's Pauling's famous statement, how do you get a great idea, that famous thing. But to have one great idea, you must have many good ideas. So I believe in that. I think I go on looking for ideas in science. and I go on working on as many as possible. That is why you end up with publishing a lot. Those who say make fun of me, oh, publishing too much, let them publish the same papers in the same journal. I will accept. Yes. I am like a child. I enjoy writing. I enjoy seeing my name in print. So what else can I say?
It's more than that, right?
No, I tell you, I somehow feel as if there is some point to prove. I have no idea. I enjoy writing and publishing. I still do. Until that is through, I go on doing research. Till now, it has not. In fact, in the last 5 years, it has increased. I have never was so excited about writing and publishing as I have been in the last 5 to 10 years. Always had to suit the facilities to the problem, or the problem to the facilities. That was the first 25 years of my life. But now, last 30 years, things have been better, particularly in Nehru Center, last 25 years, things have changed. But that subject has stood by me, and many people think I am a grandfather in the subject. I think I told you a story when I gave a lecture 3-4 years ago in some conference in Europe. And I was in the airport with a friend of mine. Somebody came and asked me, you know, there was one person who wrote a paper in 1960. I remember that he had the same name. That man must have died by now. I said, no, it is me. I don't have to tell them. So I think the subject has been a wonderful companion. I've grown with the subject. As you know, today, chemistry of materials is such a hot subject. It is almost 1/3 of chemistry today. 1/3 is probably biology, and the other 1/3 is the rest of chemistry. So I think it's nice to have belonged to a field which from the beginning.